Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I am hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. Today's upload is going to be an episode of me doing a slide presentation and a little bit of tropical tidbits, and I'm going to be trying to show you guys why this January and February may be cold. Not I'm not going to be focusing on why it's maybe snowy, just why it may be cold. If you want me to make a video on me focusing on whether it will be snowy, comment down below and let's see how many comments we can get saying that. And if there's enough support, I will obviously make a video, but if there's not, then just not worth it. So what we're looking right now is the GFS 6-hour average precipitation rate. Let's quickly look to the 2-meter temperature anomalies, and I would like to show you why this December, because everybody knows at this point that's into weather, that this December is looking very warm. And look at this, 12 hours, 18 hours. I just want to prove it to you using this, that this December will be very warm. So look at this, just warm. Anywhere you see the orange colors, the red colors, that is above average. Anywhere you see blue, that is below average. A little bit towards the 25th, 26th, maybe around Christmas time, a little bit of cold air trying to sneak in right there. Still very above average, at least for, I would say, 80% of the country. And then maybe a little bit cooling off, but still very warm. So December looks to be fairly warm for 2018. And this actually is a key factor to why the January and February of this upcoming year may be very cold and snowy. So let's go to the indices, the teleconnection indices. And this is the data, the raw data, raw model data. And let's look at some of these. So the ones I want to focus on today is the PNA and NAO. Again, you can see the WPO is also positive, and EPO being around neutral, which is also supporting of our data. But let's just focus on these two things since I want to make this video, fairly short and compact, not necessarily too long. So we are looking at the PNA right now. We are somewhere around the 19th. Wait, sorry guys, not somewhere. We are. I think today is the 16th of December. So we go through in time, and you can see that the 21st way above average PNA, so that is indicating of a little bit cooler in the eastern part of the country, but then it drops down into the negative numbers. And if we were to look at the PNA phases, if it's a negative PNA, we could see that the east is warm and dry and the west is cold and wet. Again, it won't be insanely, out of the charts negative, but it will be slightly negative. So this may be a little bit, altered. I think that this jet stream will be a little bit further to the west, and most of the country will be warm and dry. And let's look at the NAO. NAO, not at all either direction. A little bit negative, a little bit positive, but towards the end of the forecasting period, we get a little bit of that positive. We are right now somewhere around this area, and it gets, stays around neutral and then goes into the positive range. So if you go to the NAO, we look at the positive phases. It's warm across the east, and the storm track is farther to the north, and the cold air is locked up in Canada. So why am I showing this? Why does this even contribute to January or February? Well, uh, I'm just trying to show you that this upcoming December is going to be fairly warm, and we don't know what's going to happen afterwards with this into January. But again, I'm predicting that it's going to be dropping down into the positive for the PNA, or going up into the positive for the PNA and dropping into the negative for the NAO. So let's look at now my slide presentation, which I've organized with analogs. This forecast is a lot about analogs. So let's turn on my pointer, and this is again why January and February may be very cold this winter. So this is November 2014, and this was a couple of years ago. So we see very cold across much of the country, warmer a little bit across the west, and this does look similar to what we had this year. If we look at November 2018, and you remember the November this year, well, then it was fairly cold, and this is what the analog looks for this year. Very, very, very similar. So this already shows us that we could be using this year for upcoming predictions. Let's look at December 2014. Much above average for much of the country, actually almost, I would say, 95% of the country. Not extremely above average, but above average, at least 1.5 degree to 3 degrees Celsius above average. This is in Celsius, by the way. And as I showed you for the past couple minutes of the video, this upcoming December has been and will be warm for much of the country. So those two things are already looking together, looking fairly good. So now what happened in the later part of winter, January and February of of 2014 into 2015? Well, let's take a look at that. January was fairly chilly, especially across the east. Not record breaking, but much colder than what December was, and not as cold as what November was of that year or the previous year of that winter, but still warm across the west. But now, guys, get ready for this. Look what happens. Look what happens across the next month, across 2015. Just an Arctic outbreak. I mean, this is definitely school cancellations. This is a chunk of a polar vortex, if not the polar vortex itself. You could see this is blocking it, but this is somewhere around -10 degrees Celsius as the whole month for some of these locations. Very, very, very cold. I remember this year we had very many school cancellations, school closings, and we had large snowstorms. We had Winter Storm Linus that came across the country, dropped many, many feet of snow across the Midwest and the eastern part of the country. So this is what we could be looking at. Maybe not as extreme, but we could be looking at this. Also, recall that 2015, this winter months, January, February, and March, many, many nor'easters, many snowstorms, many blizzards across the East Coast, record-breaking snowfall amounts for the Northeast. Will we see that this year? I'm not guaranteeing it, but we may see a pattern similar to that. And if you want me to make a video on that, then comment down below also, since I only make these videos for you guys, so it would not make sense if you wouldn't want something and I made it. So this is what the winter looked overall for that year, which I was showing you, those months, November through March 2015. You could see, chillier across the east, if not cold in some parts, and then warmer across the west. So I do think that this year might actually look like that very much. And if we were to look at the El Nino, the ENSO outlook, I would like to prove to you guys that why these upcoming years maybe, or why this upcoming winter is similar to that one winter I was showing you, 2014, 2015. Since, yes, I showed you the analogs, I showed you a lot of things, but you still may be wondering why are they so close together? Why do they have so much in common? Well, okay, so let's look at this year. We see that this year an El Nino is going to develop, or if it already hasn't, but it's going to be a weak El Nino. If you look at the model predictions, we see 1 degree, 1.5 degree above zero, which it needs to be at least 0.5 in order for there to be an El Nino. The statistical average, GYN average, and the CPC, Climate Prediction Center Council, all has it under 1.5 degrees, around 1 degree above average, which is a very weak El Nino. So 2014, 2015, as you guessed it, was also a weak El Nino. This is a website that I pulled up, and you could see weak El Ninos, 2014, 2015. Now, you may be also asking me or wondering why did I just choose this year? Why didn't I choose any other year? Well, first off, this is the most recent year, so many people have this still fresh in mind. But if you're still doubting this, maybe this is the only year that's cold out of all these. Well, I compiled all of these years into one analog, and this is what formed. So this is what is December of all these years. You could see warm across much of the country, maybe a little bit cooler pockets. Again, this is still a very vigorous December above average for this many years. As we compile more and more years into one map, we tend to see these averages or above averages or below average temperatures to be within the 0.5 and -0.5 ranges. But because we have almost 2.5 in some of these locations, means that these weak El Nino years bring very warm conditions across the country during December, and this is what we may be looking at this year, since, like I showed you at the beginning of this video, we will be looking at a very warm December. Now let's look at the January to February of those same exact years. You could see same exact years, just a little bit different. Well, no, the next year, since it's not the same exact year, but the same winter season. But 2015 from 2014, 2007 from 2006, and so on, you could see very cold across the country. Maybe not very cold, but below average for sure, and that is a common thing among these years. So we probably will be looking at a fairly cold January and February this year. There's also many data teleconnections there's this one website that I looked at, but I didn't show you today. It was showing the European model ensembles going out as far as a month in advance, showing a negative NAO, which again, a negative NAO, if I were to show you, exit out of the slide presentation, negative NAO was It looks something like this, where it is very cold across the central part of the country, and storm tracks are through the central part of the country, and nor'easters come across the east. So very stormy, cold pattern we may be looking at into January and February. So if you like these type of videos, if you like my channel, consider subscribing, consider liking the video. I appreciate it a lot, and it's been amazing how much support I've been getting lately. So thank you for that, and I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.